let's talk musicals. You know they're my favorite. Lin-Manuel Miranda brings another musical to the big screen, based on the Broadway production. That was his concept, In the Heights, the story of Washington Heights. Little neighborhood in New York City. Let me just start with one of the comments I made to the studio rep after the screening. And that was that Lin-Manuel Miranda proves once again that there's nothing that a well-timed song and dance number cannot fix. Even though this is almost all musical. There's very little dialogue, quote unquote, in this film. So I feel like there was more dialogue in Hamilton than there was in the Heights.
In the sense that there was more of the spoken sort of hip hop infused back and forth. This has a little bit of that, but it's so yes, this feels a lot less conversational.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying that there's a difference there. But so yeah, so we have this little neighborhood, 181st Street in New York, Washington Heights, where our hero Usnavi runs his bodega and dreams of going back to the Dominican Republic to rebuild his dad's bar from before they emigrated to New York. And of course, there's all of the neighborhood characters. There's the unrequited, unacknowledged love interest on many characters' parts. There's lots of couples in this film, and a lot of song and dance. A lot of song and dance. Now, this is more in your wheelhouse, and you saw it a week before I did. How do you feel about In the Heights? Let's general. Give me your 30,000-foot view of In the Heights.
I love it.
You love it. I'm shocked. What about it? What part of it? Do you just love it because it's a musical and it's
no? Well, yes, because it's well done, and that there's a story here. It's not just spectacle, although there is quite a bit of pretty big spectacle, swimming pool, dance scenes.
Yes,
big,
that was very 40s musical.
Very, very big production. Well, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think where a lot of the negativity comes about musicals was 70s, 80s, and maybe even the early 90s, when it was just not about anything really.
Right.
When it was like, oh, what was the play about? I don't know, but this helicopter landed and the chandelier hit me in the head, and this is about story.
Yes.
It's grounded in culture, Dominican American culture.
Yes.
It is about characters,
It is.
and their struggles, and I think that all comes through really quite well. I think in a lot of ways, I look at this sort of film and think, well, this is the American dream to a great extent. This is really what it is about. Whatever other people want to think it's about, I guess that's their opinion. But
it's, let me stop you real quick, because one of the other comments I gave, and you mentioned the American dream, and literally the other comment I gave is that this film shows that the American dream is a universal dream.
Yeah. No, yes, and America is sort of the facilitator, or to a certain extent, or it's supposed to be.
Right. That is obviously the idea. But they're dreams for a reason, not, and everyone will be like, well, there's all the cat poster cliches, shoot for the moon, but at least even if you miss, you'll land among the stars, and yada yada yada. So all dreams aren't achievable.
No, but
the act of striving toward them is often gives you the result that you actually wanted, even if it's not the circumstance.
Sure. Well, we dream about being. I think we dream about a certain feeling, or a certain place, you know, and initially that might be connected to something specific.
Like $96,000,
Yes.
for example.
But
one of the great numbers in the film, by the way. 96,000.
But yeah, but then over time you realize that there are, you know, what was important about that dream, what was it that you're looking for in that dream, and if you can have that part of the dream, isn't that the same thing as essentially as having the
Right.
whole dream?
Right.
So yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it is about dreaming very big, going for it, going all in. It's about having a community that supports you,
Right.
being part of something bigger than just yourself. When, you know, and not that you have to be selfless. In fact, part of what the you know, it's about is figuring out when you should be selfish,
Yes.
when you should, you know, be focused on just you, or just what you need because that's what everybody needs, and you're, you know, not really being selfish because that's what everyone wants and needs. Yeah, no, I really like. There's, I don't know, I can't think of anything that I really don't like about this film. I think that in a way it may be more important than Hamilton. I think it's more relevant than Hamilton. I still think Hamilton will probably be the one that he's remembered for, but I think that this film, particularly, it coming out now is kind of unusual. I mean, this was something that was originally formed in 2005, but it really feels like it could have been written for today,
Yes.
in the sense that it's the kind of a rising from, you know, whatever's been put against you, this is rising above it, and that's kind of what this movie's about. And sure, it's a little ridiculous in places, but it's a musical. But
Right.
even then, when it's ridiculous, it's not overly ridiculous. And yeah, it's a little sentimental, and it's a lot of things a little bit, but I don't
Right.
think it's anything too much.
No.
I think it walks that fine line between, you know, it doesn't feel utterly ridiculous, and when you're making a musical, that is not hard to fall into. I mean, I think just having people singing and the drama of it is kind of heightened when people sing, and it could go into self-parody very, very quickly, but this obviously doesn't ever do that.
No, it's really well constructed. I didn't realize it was that old, the
Yeah.
original. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious how much tweaking was done.
There was
Maybe to
yeah.
update.
Yeah,
I would like to think that the immigration part
No, that's not the same.
it wasn't really the same,
A lot of it was, yeah.
like the march and whatnot.
A lot of, yeah. Some of the stuff that changed was more like pop culture references.
Right.
I'd have to go back and look at it, but yeah, no, most of it is just these minor things here and there.
Yeah, and I feel like that's like the one thing they kind of dropped off. I mean, they kind of touched back on it at the end in the lawyer's office.
Sure.
But that felt like it was supposed to be a bigger deal.
Well, and that, I don't know, and maybe that's because it wasn't nearly as topical when he originally wrote it.
Right, and that's why I was wondering if they added that, and that's why it wasn't so big, or if it just they couldn't figure out how to, if they didn't want to sacrifice something else just to expand it. So I don't know. That's a technical question for me. That's not a complaint.
I'd have to go back but I mean, as far as I remember, and it's been a while,
right?
That was more of just kind of, because they're showing the community at large in a lot of issues, and I think that was just one of many things that they were touching on.
Right, but no, the community's great, and I think it's funny. You spend a lot of time in this thinking, oh, this is a story about Puerto Rican and Dominican, immigrants just in this little neighborhood, and it's always been this blah blah blah. And you get near the end, and Jimmy Smits' character comes out, And he explains that that's not always the way it was, that it was an Irish neighborhood first.
Yeah.
And it evolved over time. So, the neighborhood, yes, the whole point of this story is Usnavi telling the story about how Washington Heights was disappearing. And it can't, Washington Heights is never going to disappear. Just this version is going to become something different, as it became something different when it became, quote unquote, their Washington Heights. So, these ethnic or cultural neighborhoods that exist in all big cities and have over time, now those will probably eventually stop being a thing just because of human movement and interaction, and they will get smaller and smaller and smaller, and they'll either become become the property of a different ethnic minority or ethnic subgroup, or they'll just become this big blended environment, like the rest of New York winds up being, or whatever. So it's interesting that it's not, the film acknowledges that, yes, this neighborhood exists. Yes, it's a shame that all of these things are ending, and it seems terrible, but it is in fact just kind of a natural evolution of society and societal structure. And again, the other line, again, it's Jimmy Smits. This is it. He tells his daughter, "This is it. This is the moment where you do better than me." And it's because she's getting out and she's going to go do something bigger for the neighborhood. But again, her horizons now will no longer be bounded by Washington Heights. And again, that's how society works. So this is an interesting, 50 years ago, you could have done a similarly themed musical about an Irish Washington Heights, probably. It was interesting to me that it's, as great as this neighborhood it is, and it's great. Anytime you get a more, and I hate to use this word because there's so many bad comments, a more pure version of a culture to examine, you always get to see the best of it, because the best of it is always out front because it's pure. And it's basic, and everyone takes pride in those great things. Now, the bad doesn't mean the bad stuff isn't there. If there's bad stuff, I'm just saying you get to see it in its unadulterated form, and that's always great. This film, I think, now's my tangent. I think In the Heights is actually going to steal a ton of the thunder that poor Spielberg's West Side Story remake was going to get.
It might.
And I think that's because West Side Story, kind of has a bad rap, not as a film and a stage play anymore, but more for how it depicts it. And so I don't know what Spielberg can do to overcome that in the face of a film that's probably more grounded, I guess. Yeah, you used the word grounded in reality, as In the Heights is. So it'll be interesting to see when Spielberg's West Side Story comes out, how those comparisons start getting made. I'll just be interested to see how that's wrapped up.
Yeah, and they will get made because it's inevitable. And in fact, when I walked out, one of my comments was, I hope that West Side Story is as good as this.
I mean, because right now all you can compare this to is the original.
Yeah, and I think I think West Side Story is that generation or two generations before story that could have happened, In the Heights.
Right.
This is that, not, it's same area, different neighborhood in a different time, sort of.
And a little more Romeo and Juliet than In the Heights. But,
yes.
But the comparisons have to be made.
Yeah, no, and they will be made, and that one, it's a conflict between two groups, and those, that's maybe one aspect that In the Heights didn't go to. Right. It is one of the, I mean, that wasn't what their focus was. They kept it pretty much within the community, with the exception of the individual who's coming in and kind of buying up areas, which again is part of the story, and it's part of a real story about, an area is made beautiful, and then that area is made, someone comes in and realizes they could make some money off of it, and they kind of take the beauty out of the neighborhood, but then maybe the neighborhood figures out a way to be beautiful again later on. But yeah, it's so yes, the comparisons are going to be inevitable, and they may even be appropriate in the sense that they are dealing with a lot of the same issues of being not necessarily an outsider per se, but because it's really, I mean, that's what's you get hints of what the outside world looks like through the characters who have kind of tried to go out there,
right?
And you get a sense of, but more than anything, this is not about outsiders. This is about the opposite. This is about the community. This is about people who, regardless of who they are or whatnot, it's kind of like, well, you were born here, so you're of here, and that's good enough for us. I don't know. Yeah, right. It's like you said, the dreaming of going places, and sometimes your dreams are not exactly what you thought they were, or why you were dreaming them. Wasn't actually a destination. It was just a starting point.
Right. So it's So no, it's but overall, no, I quite enjoyed In the Heights. Actually, it opens in theaters exclusively.
No, it's also on HBOMax. Yeah.
Oh, is it? God, it is. God, dog it. Yeah. So yeah. But June 11th, so everyone can watch it wherever they are.
Yeah, but again, this is a film that you need to see with people. It was a play that was written to be seen with people.
Yeah.
John Chu's done some great stuff visually with this film that you couldn't do in a play, that you can only do in a movie, and you want to see that on a screen that's big, larger than life, because this is a larger than life story. And while it will play fine on a TV. But it won't. I mean, there's some great, like the pool scene, for instance. I don't think the pool scene would be as much fun on a TV. You kind of want to see it envelop on a big screen because there's just so much going on. Yep. And it's not that you're going to sit there and be distracted, but there's just so much going on that on a little screen, I'm afraid you'll miss some of it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's easier to see the whole screen, but it's harder to get everything. So it's a weird thing. But no, it's definitely a film you should see with people.
Yeah.
With people. The theaters, go to your theaters, people. Go to your theaters. They're fine. And it's funny
because that's kind of what the movie's about too. I mean, really, it's not a film about isolation. There are some films that are, definitely more isolation, and you could see them on your own or with very few people. But this one's more of it's really about the community and should be seen with a community.
Yep. There you go. Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that. This is a movie about a community, and you should see it with a community, and that means in a theater. So, In the Heights, June 11th, HBOMax and theaters. We're going to say theater, but watch it regardless. Watch it in the theater, then go home and watch it again if you have HBOMax. There you go. That is the big release coming for the upcoming week. We will be covering. There's more coming. There are movies coming at us left and right now. So Hollywood is definitely spinning toward open. We're spinning toward open, not kind of open, not sort of open. We're spinning toward open, which is a good thing. So continue to take care of yourselves. Don't be stupid, but don't be afraid either. So go get your shot if you haven't already gotten one. Go to a theater, enjoy the company of your fellow human beings, and have some fun for a couple of hours. Till next time, I'm Mark. That's Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you guys.
And we will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.